Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. Today we're going to have a look at the newly released and newly delivered from Multi-Man Publishing game Goose Green. This is a game, the latest in the Tactical Combat series. Series designer is the legendary Dean Essig, and the game designer here is Carl Fung, who has done some fairly impressive games. I think he's only got 3 credits to my recollection to his name, according to BGG, but he's done a lot of the Order of Battle work on various gamers stuff from MMP for quite a while. So Goose Green has just arrived, and we have already actually had a crack at playing it with a buddy's copy, but this is mine. I ordered it late. So what do we get? It comes in the pre-order price for this was $24, as I recall, and the full price is $32. It is a pretty small game, but that kind of makes it a good introduction to the Tactical Combat series with a caveat that I'll talk about as we go here. So we get a cover sheet, which is blank on the back. Missed opportunity. They could have put something on the back. We get a list of stuff that we're supposed to get here. Reclosable bag. It is a reclosable bag, folks. I want to make sure I put that on. One front cover, one back cover, one 22 by 34 inch map sheet. That is the standard size for war games from American publishers anyway. 140 counter sheet. That is a half counter sheet. The TCS 4.02 series rulebook, a Goose Green rulebook, and 2 charts and tables for that issue of the rules. So let's first of all bust out I guess we'll look at the back cover, which also doesn't have anything on its back, but has the basics here. Complexity here on the MMP scale is kind of medium-high. Solitaire suitability is medium. I would agree with that level of solitaire suitability. I think TCS has a lot to recommend it as a solitaire exercise, although there is no explicit solitaire mechanic. So let's set the map up first of all. So for those who don't know, and hey, I had to look this up. The Battle of Goose Green happens in, I believe, May of 1982 as part of the Falklands War, where some British paratroopers and I think some other British troops come in and fight it out over kind of this isthmus in the Falkland Islands against some dug-in Argentinian troops, and the Argentinians make a day of it, and the British have to actually fight for it. They don't. The Argentinians just don't fold, which surprised, I think, everybody involved. So we also get half a counter sheet, and that is this counter sheet. The Argentinians up here are in this sort of steel blue, and the British are in this khaki or tan, and there's a small number of markers included as well. Suppressed is a unit status that you may need to apply. Fired is exactly what it sounds like. You use that to indicate that the units have fired. Dug in, we've got these artillery barrage markers. These are the actual units. This game happens at the platoon level, so each of these represents either a platoon or a special weapons section. And then these skulls down here represent step losses. Units or at least most units in TCS have 5 steps. So those that don't will have, as in this special weapons section right here, a red box with the number of actual steps that the unit has. So this particular unit only has 2 steps. Most or all of the units like that in this particular game, at least, are weapons or vehicles or artillery of some kind. So we also get the V4.02 series rules. Now, like most of the gamers' game lines at this point, all of which essentially are arranged in series. These are all fairly highly polished at this point. The ones that are the least polished are BCS, the Battalion Combat Series, which itself has come a long way since its original printing, and the Line of Battle, which is going to see its new version with the upcoming game No Turning Back on the Battle of the Wilderness, and I expect that to make a BCS 2.0 level jump in clarity at that point. So the series rulebook here is on a glossy, or satin finish, but the print is glossy, 32-page rulebook. Okay, full color in this case. We have our key to the counters. Now, the counters, for those who want to learn more about TCS, by the way, I've done a couple of things on TCS, but Doug over at the Tabletop's Edge is doing a series on TCS, and he's gone through all the games and has done a video on op sheets, and that is well worth your time if you're interested in this series. And I think we should be, right? There's some really interesting things going on here, almost all of which are centered on the mechanic of op sheets, which is a form of written orders, but it's executed very differently than it is in some of Dean's other designs, like the Civil War Brigade series or Line of Battle or whatever. So we do have, your unit key here. We have a whole bunch of material on op sheets, which, like I said, is kind of the core of the game. The rest of the game is relatively straightforward. It's really in the op sheets and the attached command system that I think the interesting things of TCS are happening. Section on fire combat. Not lavishly illustrated, but that's fine, right? And I would call this relatively dense printing. It's in the 3-column format the gamers have always used. Not about always, but certainly have always used for the last couple of decades. And at the end, we have some special rules and probably some designer's notes in here somewhere as well. Here is the version 4.01, 4.02 developers notes. So credits on this. We look here in the Goose Green book, which is much thinner, by the way. Designed by Carl Fung, series designed by Dean Essig, graphics designed by Nico Scooby, and development by Lee Forrester. And there's some playtest credits in here as well. So game specific, we do also, by the way, get two identical player aid cards. And these are on a quite thin paper stock. I would have preferred that this be on a thicker stock, since you're going to kind of pass it around and stuff like that. Electronic versions of all of this stuff for TCS, the series rules, 4.02 series rules, and the player aid cards are available on the Multiman website now. The Goose Green material is not there yet. Last I checked, by the time you see this video, it might well be there. So I can just reprint those and myself on thicker paper and maybe laminate them or something like that. So special rules, about half a page on the first page. British special rules, Argentinian special rules. So you got about 5.5 pages of game-specific rules here, none of which, having fiddled with this already, none of which are particularly burdensome, in my opinion. We do have, I think, 5 scenarios. 5.01 or 5.1 is the Battle of Goose Green historical setup, and this is 39 turns. The daylight turns here are 20-minute turns, as I recall, or are they 15-minute turns? No, they are 20-minute turns. And the night turns are, I'm not sure if this is true across the series, but the night turns are 30 minutes. We have 5.2, Burntside House and Low Pass. This is actually the scenario we played. We were just kind of trying to figure out the way the movement and combat worked. Op sheets in this game are optional, and we didn't play with them because they were optional. And like I said, for the first pass at it, we kind of wanted to iron out how the movement and combat works. So I think that's fine from that standpoint. But if you're going to play TCS, if I was going to play 39 turns, for example, I would want to use the op sheets. At the same time, I'm not, as small as this game is, I am not sure that playing with the op sheets will really give you the full flavor and impact of op sheets. So if you like that mechanic, and I do, and you think it sounds really promising, you might want to look at a larger game. Several other TCS games are available from Multiman, and a lot of the games in the series are available on the secondary market for not insane prices. I managed to get a copy of GD42, which I think is still available from Multiman in the Ziploc, but I managed to get a box copy for the same price that Multiman wants it in a Ziploc. So it's not particularly difficult to rustle up some TCS games. Darwin Hill, I would recommend checking Enterprise Games, by the way, because I bought at least 2 or 3 of mine from them for pretty cheap prices. Darwin Hill, this is a 15-turn scenario. The Airfield and Schoolhouse, that's a 14-turn scenario. At this scale, these turns are going to move pretty fast. There's no real reason, unless you're constantly looking rules up, that any of these turns should take more than maybe 10 minutes. In a bigger game, obviously, that would be a little bit different. Bloody Goose Green, which is a 40-turn scenario, and I think this is like the full campaign. It is somewhat hypothetical in that the Argentinians have a little better setup on their defense than they did historically. And that is why scenario 5.1 here is called the Battle of Goose Green Historical Setup. We do have an order battle and counter manifest, which is something that we typically see in TCS games, plus a glossary. These are the abbreviations that are used on the counters. We have copious designers and historical notes, which is great because, like I said at the beginning of this, I know relatively little about this entire conflict, even though I was alive when it happened. But it's not a topic that is well understood by me. So we do get a bunch of that in the back. We also get an annotated bibliography, which is great. We do have a diagram here, and we do have an op sheet, which you're intended to photocopy, and which Multiman has kindly said players have permission to photocopy this page for personal use. Now, because the Goose Green materials are not yet available on the Multiman website, I'm going to strongly recommend to Multiman Publishing, if anybody is watching this, that they make the op sheet itself available as a standalone PDF. That is because you're going to print them out, right? You're not going to use one. I mean, you could laminate it and write on it with grease pencils, I suppose. But most people are just going to get a PDF, print 10 of them out, and use that for the game. You're not going to need 10 op sheets for this game. You might need 4. But for like a big game like Black Wednesday or something like that, man, you're going to probably need a stack of op sheets. You're probably going to need 40 op sheets to play the whole campaign. So I think these should be made available in electronic format by themselves. Now, the next thing that I do for TCS is probably going to be Hunters from the Sky, which is Malmö Airfield on Crete. And they do have a standalone op sheet available on the Multiman website. And I don't know if anybody looked at it, but the quality is terrible. It is not worth printing. I will literally make an op sheet rather than using that extremely low-res Minecraft-looking thing. The quality is bad enough that I think it's not worth downloading. Feel free to look at it and argue with me in the comments if you like, but I think if you look at it, you will agree with me. In any case, Goose Green, great value, small game for a small price, and like I said, kind of a well-placed introduction to the Tactical Combat series, with the one caveat that while it's going to give you a good picture of how the movement and combat and the other rules work, it may not necessarily give you a great and complete understanding of all the ramifications of the op sheet mechanic and the command rules, which I do recommend. Maybe not for a learning game, but beyond a learning game, I would recommend playing TCS with those. And Hunters from the Sky actually came with a recommendation that you don't use the op sheets, and I think they didn't give you an op sheet in there, which is why we went looking for one. And then they later kind of decided that you could play it with op sheets after all, which if that's what we play, we will absolutely do that, because I think the op sheet mechanic is awesome and fascinating, and I would like to experience it in full. So Goose Green, however, looks really nice. Brand new from Multiman Publishing. Even at the non-pre-order price, it's still pretty cheap. So if you're interested in this system, this is a great entry point. I'd like to give a special shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement, it would be impossible to keep doing what we do here at the channel. So thank you, patrons. Thank you for watching. Please do thumbs up the video and subscribe to the channel for more wargaming goodness if you have not already done so. And until next time, happy wargaming.